Hello and welcome to Jump to It. We've certainly got plenty to talk about on today's show because last weekend we had some brilliant racing highlighted by Baeed's sensational win in the Prix de Milan in Paris, as well as some great racing in the UK, particularly with the Sprint Cup. But importantly, we get to look forward to some tremendous racing to come your way over the next few days. We've got the St Leger meeting in England from Doncaster. Of course, we've got the brilliant two-day Irish Champions Festival and also the ARC Trials coming from Paris Longchamp. Joining me to preview those meetings as well as reflect on some of the big news stories around, Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley join me. Stephen, what a weekend of racing we had in the weekend gone by. Some brilliant performances. I know we're going to talk about Baeed extensively, but there was certainly some great racing on the track.
Yeah, it was terrific action from Haydock. Shane, we had proper fast summer ground, unusually for Haydock. Usually it's over water, but it genuinely was very quick ground at Haydock. I'm still recovering financially from Starman's narrow defeat. That was a particularly painful moment, but hopefully he'll show what he can do later in the summer. I still think he's a top-class sprinter. Although perhaps some of the edge has been taken off him by that defeat. But yeah, some cracking racing. And this weekend, one of the busiest we've got. Ireland have got some fantastic racing, both Saturday and Sunday, and obviously the St Leger on Saturday.
And Stephen, we may as well now welcome in the marathon man himself, Ed Quigley. Ed, good to see you once again. Of course, you did your big charity run on Sunday. How'd you pull up?
Yeah, pulled up lame, I think, was the official, the line from the trainer after that. Wilted in the sun up a big hill in 25-degree heat. Afterwards the trainer said, flat track bully possibly for me. So I'm more of an entry horse going forward rather than a sharp one. But yeah, look, £2,000 raise from Macmillan Cant. So yeah, thanks for everyone who got involved. And yeah, my legs are still in bits now. And never again. As the famous rower Steve Redgrave said, he said something along those lines. I won't quite go down that route, but you won't find me doing that Cheltenham route again. That was a real tricky one, shall we say?
Guys, before we talk about some of the big news stories from last weekend and also focus on what's coming up, I just want to pose a question. And Stephen, you kind of touched on this in your introduction. This weekend, we've got some of the greatest racing around. Big meetings in the UK, big meetings in Ireland, big meetings in Paris. It seems to, though, have slipped under the radar, perhaps from a promotional perspective. I mean, with the outstanding levels of horseflesh that are going to be gracing the tracks over the next few days, it doesn't seem to have been given perhaps some of the profile of other meetings we've seen so far this summer. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Shane. And one of the problems racing has, apart from there's probably a third of the fixture list you could immediately get rid of and nobody would mind at all, is that on a Saturday now you have all this top-class racing compressed. As soon as there's a minor delay, which happens every single weekend, it's inevitable, they all end up running into each other. So all these top-class races are compressed into about a 90-minute window in the middle of a Saturday afternoon. I mean, I'm sort of more of the old school. When I used to love it when there was top-class racing sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it was a little bit more spread out. But the age we live in now, it's all designed for terrestrial TV, and it's all compressed. And as you say, what it doesn't allow is it doesn't allow a great deal of build-up or thought. I mean, we had a really good debate, didn't we, last week about 48-hour and maybe even 72-hour decks. I think one of the things we could do immediately is say, for all these Saturday races and Sunday races in Ireland for that matter, that we need to have 3 full clear days when we know from 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning exactly what's running on a Saturday. It allows bookmakers to bet on it. It have to increase turnover all around the world, and it can only be a positive thing.
Ed, do you agree that perhaps this weekend slipped under the radar a little bit from a promotional perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this touches on a point I flagged on this show a couple of weeks ago. I think I used the words the top-class racing should promote itself in more peacock feathers, and this is the perfect weekend for it. And to be honest with you, I don't know anyone who knows that St Mark's Basilica is going up against Poetic Flare and Tarnower unless you scroll through about 83 Twitter feeds, to be honest with you. This is a really big weekend of racing. And if you had it aligned 72 hours in advance, that this is who's clashing, this is what's happening. As I said, it would almost allow the marketing bandwagon to promote itself. See what I'm saying? This is a phenomenal weekend of racing. I know Adyar's missing in the Prix Nial, but obviously you look at Hurricane Lane, you look at the quality of that Irish Champions Stakes, there's just top-class Group 1 action right, left and centre. And as I said, unless you have the Twitter variety, you'd be, to be honest with you, you wouldn't have a clue after this was going on. as a general medium. Again, we're going off on a tangent here, but it does come back to as I said, the promotion of the racing from the top end. I also think horse racing you could almost do with a midweek TV, terrestrial television, half-hour programme, but for boring people like myself, a bit of a gardener's world. I mean, a bit of something where you've got a 40-minute slot to talk about the build-up and what's going on behind the scenes and how everyone's getting ready and the big clashes that are in store. Because with racing, all we tend to find out is the decks at the last minute, and then the racing appears on your screen on a Saturday afternoon, if you see what I'm saying. So, yeah, I don't want to harp on a negative note. This is a cracking weekend of racing, but I do think this could really be built up, because there's not exaggeration to say that Irish Champion Stakes, those big three will make it. That's one of the clashes of the season.
We're going to spend a bit of time talking about those big races coming our way, but we need to pause and reflect on what we saw last weekend. And guys, I'm going to start with Baeed, because he is simply outstanding to my eye. He's now 5 starts, 5 wins, son of See the Stars. All of those runs, Stephen, have been over 1,600 metres or a mile. He's come a long way since he made his debut at Leicester in a maiden on June 7. Within 3 months, he's now a Group 1 open age winner. What's the ceiling for this horse? Could he potentially be the best miler in the world?
Well, I am a Baeed believer, Shane. I'm in your camp here, but I know the cynics on Twitter, of whom I'm very often one, weren't that impressed by Baeed in France. I think it's fair to say he was workmanlike. I think Crowley is riding him knowing that he's on probably one of the best horses he's ever ridden and expects to win. And I think it was a muddling, rather typical French race where they let the pacemaker go, and suddenly Crowley sort of half panicked, turning for home, and thought, well, hang on a minute, someone's going to have to go and get him. And he then got him very quickly. And I don't think the horse did an awful lot in front. So my view of Baeed hasn't changed at all by that performance. But here's the thing. Racing's all about betting. I suspect that performance is going to mean a lot of people will want to oppose Baeed when he steps up in class, probably in the QE2 at Ascot next against Palace Pier, Poetic Flair, and probably several others as well. So from a betting point of view, I suspect that slightly underwhelming performance visually might be helpful for those of us who are still firmly in the fan club.
Ed, as Stephen touched on, there's a lot of discussion about where he now sits in the pantheon of the top-class horses of 2021. Now, what's your assessment? Did he do enough on the weekend with that win to make him a legitimate contender, perhaps even favourite for the Queen Elizabeth, or would you still be siding with a horse like Palace Pier that you know has been there and done it repeatedly?
Yeah, very good question, Shane. Yeah, I mean, look, clearly he's now proven he is a Group 1 class animal. Let's not forget he looked excellent in a Group 3 when he absolutely pulverised the field in Goodwood on his penultimate start. Look, he's a Group 1 horse. Where he sits in terms of the ranking of Group 1 animals, the truth is we don't know yet. I get that. I find it really interesting. Everything's in absolute terms at the moment, isn't it, in the racing bubble? You either got to be the new Frankel or you're absolute rubbish and you should retire. The truth is Baeed is a Group 1 horse. We don't really know how good he is yet. As you at the top of the show, Shane, you said the horse only made his racecourse debut in June. It's totally plausible. He's got more improvement to come. He is on the upgrade. However, I will flag up I think Baeed is a very good horse. The ground is an issue. William Haggis has repeated it again. He said the QE2 is the target, but he would get nervous if the rain really did arrive, because he's a horse with a natural turn of foot. I think Palace Pier, a bit older, a bit more streetwiser. If it came down to a battle of wills, a bit of a punch-up, I think he'd probably prefer that side of things, whereas I think Baeed's got that push-button kind of acceleration. I think they both could be in for a real race if my filly Alcohol Free comes back to a mile with her fillies allowance at soft ground. This is the race again we've been talking about for a long time, isn't it? Interesting, sounds like Poetic Flair is going to have a go up in trip beforehand. I thought perhaps they keep him fresh for the QE2, considering that Poetic Flair's best performance of the season came at Ascot in the St James's Palaces. So look, lots to look forward to. At the moment, I'd be 55-45 in the Palace Pier camp, but I do think ground conditions will have a humongous bearing on this contest. I think it will swing the race one way or the other in a massive effect, to the point where if it came soft or heavy, I wouldn't be shocked if Baeed didn't run. All
right, question for both of you. Stephen, I'll start with you before we move on to other topics. Baeed is by See the Stars, who was a Derby winner. He won an Arc. He was a superstar. He was a champion. Baeed's been kept solely to the mile so far through his career. Do you think he could actually be a better horse, upped in trip to, say, 1.25 miles or even 1.5 miles?
Definitely, yeah, I completely agree with that, Shane. I think he is more of a galloper than a horse with an explosive turn of foot. I think he's exceptionally good. I mean, I think that race in France probably saw him in the worst light possible, really, because he had to sort of quicken to get there, then got there too soon, and the race was won, and he didn't draw away. I mean, I suppose you would have liked to have seen him quicken 6 lengths clear and win hard on the bridle, but I'm not sure really that's him now. He's reached the sort of top level. So, yes, totally. 1 mile 2. I bet Haggis will be thinking 1 mile 4 down the line. Hopefully he's going to be a horse we're going to see for a few more seasons as well. Of course, the trouble with the flat a lot of the time is these horses run for 1 season and you never see them again. But hopefully the plans with Baeed are for him to have 2 or 3 years at the highest level. And I think he's just the sort who'll keep on progressing.
Yeah, I suppose that's the good point that you raise. I mean, as a stallion prospect, he's probably, if he can keep going through this season undefeated, it'd be worth 50 million quid, give or take. So the options to retire him would be quite enormous. Ed, do you think he's a horse that would be better up in trip?
I'm in slightly disagreement here. For now, I just think he is a horse of a good turn of foot. He showed that good with it. Every time you've gone wow with him, it's been because of his explosiveness, if you see what I'm saying. And I just think it could be on the ground. I think the ground could be a key factor to him. A proper good to firm. I think he could really stretch and go. Look, on the pedigree side of things, yes, it's totally plausible. In time, he will go up a trip. Because let's not forget, Sea the Stars, of course, won the Guineas and then went up in distance. So he looks versatile. He's unexposed. He said he only made his race course debut at Leicester in June. It's almost unfathomable, isn't it? The meteoric rise this horse has made. He's really exciting. I just think I will follow him wherever there's quick ground. If the winter arrives in October at Ascot, I would be shocked if we see him, and they might have to come up with a plan B or C, put it that way. But look, brilliant horse, really excited, great for the game, and we should enjoy these stars when they're around.
Yeah, well said. Regardless of what happens into the future, he's come a long way. I mean, to win an open age Group 1 within 3 months of the commencement of his racing career is quite extraordinary. All right, guys, let's reflect on the Sprint Cup at Haydock. And well done to Kevin Ryan with Emaraaty Ana taking out the prize, narrowly, much to your dismay, Stephen. But I'm going to give Kevin Ryan a big pat on the back because he's really turned this horse into being a wonderfully consistent sprinter at the top end. Since the horse had a wind operation and a gelding operation in 2020, he's just become such a consistent sprinter throughout the racing year.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good performance. I think what I will say, Shane, is on Saturday at Haydock, the ground was very fast and you had to be up on the pace. Nearly all the winners made all the running. Most of them got over on the far rail and stayed there. And that's not something that's unusual at Haydock. My personal opinion, it might be slightly pocket talk, is that if Starman was in a match race with Emaraaty Ana, I would have Starman around 8-1 on to beat Emaraaty Ana under normal circumstances. I think Tom Marquand, and bearing in mind, not trying to be too critical here, because the margins are tiny in these sprints, particularly the top Group 1 sprints, but I think he was probably 1.5 lengths or 2 lengths out of his ground without really making any effort. I'm not saying he was sort of asleep, but as the race panned out, he definitely gave Emaraaty Ana 2 lengths head start. Now, that's no criticism because Starman has been ridden when he won the July Cup. He came from miles back and exploded clear late. And I think that's the way he has to be ridden. They settle him and he quickens late. And it's just that there was a pace bias at Haydock. It was very hard to come from off the pace. That being said, in another 10 yards, he's a length in front, isn't he? He was flying home at the finish. So I was mortified that he was beaten. Coming back to Ed's point, talking about the ground in October, which presumably will be where Starman may go next, he definitely does not want soft ground. He's run one bad race in his whole career, and he was tailed off at Ascot last October on soft ground. They won't run him at Ascot if it's soft, and all the recent evidence really suggests it almost certainly will be soft when they have the big meeting at Ascot at the back end of the season. So we might have seen the best of Starman perhaps this season. I think we're going to come on and talk about the other top-class sprinters like Winter Power and Suesa, Shane, aren't we, in a moment or two?
Yeah, we will. Ed, what's your view of Starman and Emaraaty Ana from the Sprint Cup?
Yeah, interesting. To me, I thought Starman just looked a little bit flat, and I just wonder whether that punch up on very deep ground at Deauville only 3.5 weeks ago perhaps just took 5-10% off Starman, if you see what I'm saying. Listening to Connections was almost a case of, well, they've gone all the way there to Deauville. The ground's not right, but crikey, we're here now. It's a big prize. Let's go for it. And I just wonder if that just left its effect, if you see what I'm saying. So a horse I actually think would be really suited to the Breeders' Cup because you get ground like, the runway at Heathrow Airport over there most of the time. Yeah. And I think that's a horse with a lot of dash you would do pretty well. So interesting one. Emaraaty Ana, become very consistent. I mean, congratulations to Kevin Ryan. I mean, I had to take his his post-race comments a little bit of a pinch of salt when he said possibly the best horse he trained. I mean, for crying out loud, horse has won once in 2 years going into that contest. I mean, clearly a consistent horse, but a horse who, let the facts say, loses more often than it wins, you see what I'm saying? But I think we could pretty much say that for the sprint division as a whole. It's been one that's been troubling us on this show since Royal Ascot and all that ding-dong with the stewards' inquiries and Wesley Wards and Archie Watsons. And I think it's a little bit of a case this season. They all seem to be taking a turn to beat each other. I think Starman is a class horse. I think in an ideal world, Starman needs a little break now, wants some quick ground, and they find a suitable target. There were suggestions that the horse needs to go up to 7 furlongs. I personally don't totally buy that. I thought the horse just looked as though it just ran a little bit flat for whatever reason, and perhaps that explosiveness to eat up the ground, Stephen says, from a couple of lengths off the pace, that wasn't quite there on that occasion. But look, he's run a very good race in defeat, and I'm sure he'll bounce back and add more Group 1 honours to the CV.
All right, let me put you both under pressure. Who is the number 1 seed in the sprint ranks? Because we don't have an out-and-out superstar this year. Stephen, which horse do you think rates as the best of the division?
Right, I think on fast ground, Starman. On soft ground, Suesa. Anywhere in between those two, so good ground, good to soft, they'd be sort of locked together for me. With regard to the rest of the season, the horse to follow is Suesa, the French filly. Who's only a 3-year-old, not had much racing. She revels with cutting the ground. If she goes to Ascot and she's against Emaraaty Ana, Winter Power, Starman on rain-eased ground, Suesa will be one of the biggest naps of the season because she absolutely loves soft ground, but all the others need top of the ground to be seen at their best. So it's a sort of ifs and buts, but I really do like Suesa. She got an absolutely atrocious ride in the Nunthorpe at York when one of the best backed horses of the week up there. Buick was miles out of his ground. Perhaps he couldn't do a lot about it, but he must have been 10 lengths behind Winter Power after 2 furlongs. And I thought it was an amazing run, made up so much ground late. She's a real filly to follow when she gets a bit more cut in the ground.
Ed, do you have a view on the sprint division at this stage?
Yeah, I pretty much echo a lot of what Stephen's saying. I don't think you can categorise and say here is the gold medal, here is the champion for it. I think there's so many ifs and buts, and a lot of horses are very fussy and very niche this season. Starman on quick ground in ideal conditions, I think is the best. On deep ground, I think Suesa is the one to focus on. Winter Power is an individual who just seems to thrive on the Knavesmire on an absolute road. Outside of that, doesn't always form to the best, although has winning form at Newmarket. So, yeah, I think the sprint division is muddling. This is one we've been banging on about, and to be honest with you, I'm no closer to really solving. The champion sprint will be fascinating, and again, harp on like a broken record, but ground conditions are an 8 to 10 length swinger in that race, put it that way. Deep ground and Suesa will be very tough to beat, I think.
Guys, let's switch attention and talk some trainer issues. An Irish trainer, Stephen Mahon, this week had a 4-year ban for animal neglect and welfare issues reduced by 6 months. Now, this is a big talking point, Stephen, because with animal welfare being a core tenet of the racing industry, what do you think this type of situation is putting out to the general public when a trainer that has been banned is now getting a reduction in penalty?
Yeah, I think it's Shane. We have this section every week. Racing shooting itself in the foot. I mean, we could spend 45 minutes every week finding the latest disaster. I mean, we've had the racing plague for the racing league for the last few months, and this is another example of racing inviting trouble in. I mean, what I've read about it, I don't have first-hand experience. I've read the Racing Post article about him. There's no way in the world it should have been reduced by 6 months. It seems like a pretty lenient penalty in the first place. I'm not really sure we should be inviting these people back into the sport, to be quite honest with you. He's obviously been completely in the wrong, found guilty, and to reduce it by 6 months, why draw the attention to racing from people who want racing banned for exact reasons whether he's been found guilty for? It seems completely nonsensical. It looks like the wrong decision. You know, it's like a sort of old boys club. Oh well, you know, we'll lop 6 months off. Just baffling, absolutely baffling.
Let me put it to you this way, Ed, off the back of Stephen's comments. Should animal welfare, equine welfare, be the one untouchable when it comes in horse racing? If you're done for an equine welfare issue, should you then be banned from the sport completely?
I'm not totally in disagreement with that statement, Shane. I think there's every chance there should be. Obviously, slight different circumstances to be looked at. But yeah, generally speaking, personally, just my personal view, I find what he's done tenfold worse than the Gordon Elliott saga. To be honest with you, it's just because of Gordon Elliott's prominence and who he is, that it's just blown up into a big PR circus. I mean, this guy, Stephen Mahon, I don't know how he's anywhere near the sport, personally. If you go back, he's a repeat offender. In 2008, he was found guilty of neglecting a horse who got so hungry it had to eat its own legs. I mean, it's totally abhorrent how this guy is anywhere near the sport still. But he seems to obviously have a very good legal team with him who find loophole after loophole that when the door shuts, he comes in through the Irish horse racing window. I just find it bewildering, to be honest with you. You read the cases, read it through the Racing Post, and the hearing talks about Animal A and Exhibit B and Exhibit C. I mean, it does. It sounds like a trip to Bristol Zoo. I just think it's absolute nonsense. I don't know how this guy's anywhere near the sport still. It's not like he's made one silly kind of drunken error. He's a repeat offender. I mean, and from what we gather, he's been assisting Pat Kelly as an assistant trainer because the merits of his ban don't oversee him being banned as an assistant. He's still permitted to be within the sport. I don't know. I just find we tie our heads in knots about whip rules and the perception of that to the public, and yet you've got a guy with a track record just being a total rungun, still allowed in the sport. To me, just horse racing summed up totally. I don't see why this guy is anywhere near the sport. I just totally throw the book at him.
Well said, both of you. But you did reference Gordon Elliott. Let's talk about the champion Irish trainer who has been on the sidelines after copping a 6-month disqualification for sitting on that dead horse, with the imagery being shared on public social media channels. Now, he's back, allowed officially to train as of this week, Stephen. There's been a PR campaign that's run through some media channels talking about, how excited he is to be back and, how disappointed he is to have lost some of the great horses attached to his stable. But again, how do you think the public will respond to Gordon Elliott training again? And importantly, do you think he will be able to build his stable to levels previously, or will there be a shift in the mindset, particularly from the ownership base, as to whether or not he is a trainer that they want to be attached to?
Yeah, I mean, this is more complicated, Shane. The Stephen Mahon case is an absolute, hang 'em high sort of job. But this is more complicated with Gordon Elliott. I'm tending towards he made a terrible, terrible mistake. It was probably, it's not something he's ever done since or before. I tend towards the fact that he's served his time now. He's going to come back. I don't think racing does itself any great favours to dwell on it, talk about it. I do agree with what I think you're saying, though. I haven't particularly liked the tone of the Racing Post sort of advertorials about him and it's almost verging on the asking for sympathy. I don't think he deserves sympathy, but I think everyone deserves a second chance. And I suspect, coming on to your second question, I think he probably will get the horses back because he was so phenomenally successful with all those horses. And handled them so well. And Cheltenham, Cheltenham a couple of years ago, he's absolutely dominant. He seemed to be winning every race virtually. So he's an exceptional trainer. Let's hope this is a blip, a one-off. I think he's genuinely contrite about it, and we can move on. So I do think this one is more nuanced than the Stephen Mahon case, yes.
Ed, what's your view?
Yeah, I mean, however, your personal view on it is essentially going to dictate how far you think the kind of PR thread should run with it. If you thought it was totally abhorrent and he should be banned for life, then I could understand why you don't want to see him anywhere near the racing game. If you're of the view that, oh, for goodness sake, he'd had a couple of drinks, he did something silly, let's all forgive and forget and move on. Forgetting all personal things aside, there has to be a kind of journalistic benchmark where, whatever your view, you have to ignore that, because whether you like it or not, is back, and he's going to be training Group 1 winners on Saturdays. He's going to be stood in Cheltenham Festival winners' enclosures smiling. So there is a responsibility. If I'm asked to interview Gordon Elliott to do a stable tour, I will happily talk to Gordon Elliott about those horses in the stable tour. I think there comes a point you've got to draw a line in the sand. It was one stupid crass error. We'd like to all hope that it never happens again. But where are we if you hold the grudge forever? I mean, you'll be in 5 years' time going to be sitting here going, oh, Gordon Elliott this, Gordon Elliott that. I think, look, whatever your view of him, he is back. There's a journalistic responsibility to cover his horses because, let's face it, he is a wonderful trainer of horses in terms of getting them to produce them to win at the highest level. He will be back whether we like it or not. And I'm with Stephen a bit here. I think we could wrangle on about this one for hours. And I personally think if you compare this to the Stephen Mahon case, it's just the fact that, to be blunt, Stephen Mahon is a nobody in the horse racing world compared to Gordon Elliott. And if the shoe's on the other foot, then there's an argument Stephen Mahon could be locked away forever, if you see what I'm saying. But Gordon Elliott, it's a tricky situation. I understand the case for both sides, but personally, I'm of the overall view he's done his time. Let's move on and let's just crack on with things.
Guys, the biggest race in the world possibly this year will be the Prix de Triomphe at Paris Longchamp in October. We're about a month away. It's traditionally one of the great contests, but I think the build-up to the 100th running of the race this year is something pretty special. Now, we've got 3 traditional lead-up races coming up on Sunday at Paris Longchamp, the Prix Vermeil, the Prix Niel, and also the Prix Foy, all over a mile and a half. We've had a lot of other feature races in the build-up. We've also got the running of the Irish Champion and many other contests. What are you doing a month out from the race, Stephen, in trying to find the winner?
Well, this really is the race of the season. I know we keep saying this. Snowfall, who I have got completely wrong from the moment she sets foot on a racetrack. She won the Musidora at York, and I thought it was the most brilliant ride. Completely stole the race, left alone. The others were all asleep. 14-1. Aidan O'Brien doesn't have 14-1 winners. They must know she's run 1 million times last year. Very flattering performance. So she then went to Epsom. I thought, this looks a move here. You can lay 7-4 at place. She was 14-1 at York a few weeks earlier. 7-4 a place. She won by 16 lengths. I mean, I suspect, and she's come out and landed the odds twice since in start. She was very impressive at York. I just have a suspicion, reading back through the form, that Snowfall might have been beating the same fillies who aren't very good. And I think that she's going to be underpriced if they all turn up for the Arc. At the moment, I do like Adea. I think he's a tough, relentless galloper. I think we're just about to talk about it. Suffered a leg infection and misses this weekend, of course, Shane, which is a shame. I think they'd have wanted to get a prep into him, but he's going to go straight to the Arc now. I think if it's decentish ground, Adea will take a lot of beating and will definitely give his running under a positive ride. I think they know he's a galloper. They're not going to ride him for pace. He's a thorough stayer, relentless galloper, top-class horse. He's kept on improving and improving. He'd be the one for me at this stage, but obviously the leg infection is a slight niggling worry now.
Ed, as I bring you into the conversation, Adea is actually quite interesting because if he could win the Arc, he goes into the rarest of territory, being a Derby winner who won a King George and then goes on to win the Arc. It'd be a very, very special treble. Do you think he's the horse to beat, or are you looking elsewhere a month out from the big race?
Well, just the old alarm bells have gone off with me now, Shane, with the leg infection a month before, going to miss the prep run, going straight there. It always gets me a bit nervous, that does. And obviously, Hurricane Lane's odds on to win the St. Ledger this weekend, and I wonder if that almost forced the hand that they will run Hurricane Lane regardless in the Arc. I know it had been discussed and probably go over a 2-prong attack. But yeah, I mean, the 2 races I've been saying I want to see all season is the QE2 with Palace, Pier and company and Baeed and all those top guns going against each other. And then this race, just on paper, with Snowfall, Adayar, Horse Tarnawa, Hurricane Lane. I wouldn't forget Wonderful Tonight on deep ground either. And even St. Mark's Basilica could come into the equation if that horse absolutely romps home, although I think it's possibly more of a 10-furlong sort. But yeah, brilliant race at the moment. I suppose from a shortening point of view, Hurricane Lane is probably still 9-1 in the market. If the horse does bolt up in the Ledger, and with slight concerns about the well-being of the stablemate, as I said, they probably will have to roll the dice at Longchamp, given that the horse is some top-class form over a mile and a half as well. So fascinating race. Ground conditions, as always, will play their part. I'm sitting firmly on the fence, with splinters in my backside, and just looking forward to it, to be honest with Shane. It really, really am. That and the QE2, the two. Rarely do I get this jiggy about flat racing, to be honest with you, Shane. And there's 2 races here. Just really hope all these big guns stand their ground.
Well, let's hope you build some momentum with these big flat races before we switch onto twig hopping territory with some of the big jumps racing to come. Well, guys, a lot to look forward to this weekend. Let's focus now on some of the upcoming races. And we've got a plethora of feature racing coming your way. And we're going to start with the big one on Friday. And this is the Doncaster Cup over 2 miles, 2 furlongs. And we've only got a small field as we have a look at the irishracing.com field for this staying feature. True Shan carrying the penalty, 7-2, Alan King and Holly Doyle. Stradivarius, the mighty champion, 13-8 on. the favourite for Frankie Dettori, John Gosden. Eagles by Days at a big price. Naif Roads at a big price, 16 to 1. Rodrigo Diaz, who's of course got a lot of interest now from Australia with the recent purchase at 11 to 2. Jamie Spencer for David Simcock. The Grand Visor at 25 to 1. And Alerta Roja is also at a big price there of 40 to 1. So we've only got a small field, Stephen, of 7 for the Doncaster Cup. How do you see this race unfolding tactics-wise, and who do you want to be with?
Well, I think it's a straight match, Shane. We've been talking about the going already on this show. The going at Doncaster at the moment, which is Wednesday, is good to firm. It's a really hot, sunny day. There are showers and heavy ones forecast both on Thursday and Friday. So let's hope they miss most of those. Trushan wants soft ground, won't run if it stays fast. They've already said that. He's a top-class performer. The only thing I'll say about Trushan, he's never been beyond 2 miles. This is 2 mile 2. Whereas Stradivarius obviously has been there, got the T-shirt, done it. Perhaps his powers are slightly on the wane, although I tend to take the view that he was monkeying around a bit in front when he won narrowly last time from Spanish Moon at York. Spanish Mission, I beg your pardon. I thought Dettori had plenty in hand in the last 10 yards. He came back on the bridle. Perhaps he's just getting, like us all, Shane, a little bit older and wiser. I think Stradivarius will win. He was nearly evens when the prices first came out for this. And of course, if you took even Stradivarius, you'll be praying it stays dry because Trushan won't run and there isn't a third in. The third in is a Dave Simcock handicapper who's never tried the trip before either, who's unlikely to stay, in my opinion. So Stradivarius, he might be getting older. I should think he's going to be extremely hard to beat. Doncaster's pretty ideal for him. He probably doesn't want rain, but I think the going with Stradivarius is overstated. He's won in really testing ground. John Gosden always says he wants good, proper summer ground, but he's won on all sorts of ground. I think there's probably other reasons for why he's underperformed at various stages, but he's got an incredible record. He's won 7 Group 1s. He's 18 from 29 in his career, whereas Trushan, who's 8 from 14, has only won 1 Group 1. So I'd be worried about the trip and the ground for Trushan in what looks an absolute match.
And the fact Trushan's got to give away £2 based on winning a Group 1 this year where Stradivarius hasn't, so he's carrying the penalty. Ed, are you in the Stradivarius camp or are you looking for an emerging talent to knock the king off the throne?
No, I'll be with Stradivarius. I don't think he's as good as he was, but he's still running to a very good level, and this just looks, a penalty kick, as they say, because I don't think you're going to need some proper heavy showers to materialise here for Trushan to line up. Also worth noting, as Stephen says, you've mentioned that Trushan has to concede weight. And also, the Alan King team, they haven't had a winner in the last 3 weeks. They've gone totally off the boil. So, Stradivarius for me, this looks a weak renewal. Despite his advancing years, I just think it'll be too good and get the job done.
Yeah, I think he gets a lot of ticks when it comes to tactical versatility as well in the big race. So Stradivarius, short price favourite for the Doncaster Cup coming up on Friday. Let's move on to Saturday, and it's the big 3-year-old race, and this is the Cazoo St Ledger, third leg of the Triple Crown, run over a mile, 6.5 furlongs. And Aidan O'Brien's still got a few runners in this race, including Carlisle Bays at a big price. Fernando Vici for Donica O'Brien. Ashim Murphy's taking the ride, also at 50 to 1. High Definition, a late supplement for the race, currently at 9 to 1. Hurricane Lane is your short price favourite, the brilliant 3-year-old Charlie Appleby, Godolphin and William Buick, 6 to 4 on. Interpretation of 14s, King of the Castles at 40 to 1. Mojo Star, they broke through for a maiden success, the Derby runner-up. Richard Hannon, Ross Ryan at 8 to 1. Ottoman Emperor is interesting, really building a lovely record. Johnny Murtaugh at 11 to 2. Scope at 50 to 1. Rob Hornby taking the ride for Rafe Beckett. Salukins at 14s. The Mediterranean at 16s. Youth Spirit, not sure if he's going to take his place in the race. And Saver Forest, the other one, currently at 40 to 1. So we're still waiting on the final field to come to head. Likely to get up to 13 runners. Stephen, are you with the favourite or are you looking elsewhere?
Well, I mean, fair play to Ed here because he's been on about Hurricane Lane for the St Ledger since last jump seson. The Triumph Thirdly was talking about Hurricane Lane for the St Ledger. So hats off to him. So he was, I think Ed has put this up at sort of double figure price, to be fair. I'm going to put it up at 5 to 4 on. There isn't a second in here, Shane. Ottoman Empire won a very substandard Gordon Stakes where they all fell in a heap. He was a double figure price there. I mean, he's a nice, tough, progressive horse, but I do find it hard to imagine he's a Group 1 winner, to be quite honest with you. Rioja Stars won a maiden at 6 to 1 on at Newbury. He's got a furlong to find with Hurricane Love on their running in Ireland. High Definition, talking of hurdlers, High Definition, what a lovely hurdler he'd make. I mean, in the old days, of course, Isterbrack and horses like that did go hurdling. It was good top-class horses from the flat did go hurdling. I mean, High Definition would be a fascinating hurdler. I mean, he's completely lost his way. He looks an absolute hound the other day. I know he's had physical issues, but he has really. He was stopping quicker than Ed up the Cheltenham Hill the other day. But no, for me, Hurricane Love, I do think is a class apart, and I think maybe some bookmakers will want to get him because of the trip 2 furlongs further. I think it's absolutely been crying out for it. I think he'll get a positive ride. He's an uncomplicated galloper. I think they'll be strung out all over town more. I suppose the one, he might not want soft ground if the rain really did arrive. And that might be a slight concern, although he handled a bit of cut at Epsom and at Longchamp, so not really. As long as it didn't get really testing, I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine. He's 5-4 on. I think it's a very fair price.
All right, good push for the favourite, Ed. And as Stephen mentioned, you have been shouting from the hilltops that Hurricane Lane was the perfect horse for the Derby. For the St Ledger. How are you feeling now? Only days away from the big one. Are the nerves kicking in? Because you got the big prize.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was the tip at 12-1 for Jump To It followers back in the dark ages, and yeah, I'm glad they're running in this because I think the race course is suited perfectly. He's the kind of horse you want to wind up and let him go. Town will be brilliant. He's ticking all the boxes. It's hard to see what's going to get near him. He runs to his form. It's top class, Group 1 classic form this season. I think he'll stay. I just think he wins. To be uncomplicated. What I find the interesting subplot here is the horse High Definition, which I think your actual words were, Shane, are he's become horrible. I think you used on the show a couple of times ago. He had a terrific 2-year-old campaign, and then in fairness to him, ran an absolute corker when gaining on Hurricane Lane at the line in the Dante back in May. Wasn't beat far at all. But since then, I mean, not only the wheels have come off, like the hubcaps as well, and they're rolling halfway down the street, aren't they? I mean, it is almost a bit strange they've decided to supplement him for this. I don't know, is that last chance saloon or what their tactics are, but yeah, he's the enigma of the pack, really, because he's almost promised so much and not yet to deliver. But no, I think Hurricane Lane wins, and I'm uninspired as an each-way play, so we'll move on.
Fair enough, but I think horses like High Definition are interesting because he must be showing something at home for Aidan O'Brien and Coolmore to want to keep press on. But just what we're seeing on the racetrack, it looks like he just doesn't want to be a racehorse come race day. Anyway, it'll be a fascinating contest to St Ledger. Before we move on to Ireland, guys, is there any other horse that you're really looking forward to over the next few days from Doncaster?
My actual bet of the weekend is Bayside Boy, who runs on Saturday at Doncaster. I really like him. I know that Roger Varian holds him in very high regard, and they were absolutely mortified, as was I, when he got nutted right on the line at Newbury. So that is one horse I really am looking forward to this weekend.
What about you, Ed?
Yeah, we'll touch upon it later, but I've got a couple of tips at big prices on the Friday and the Saturday, so we'll wrap those up in the tip section at the end of the show.
All right, nice little tease for what's coming up with our tips of the week. But great racing coming up with the 2-day festival in Ireland. We start at Leopardstown on Saturday, 2 Group 1s plus 2 Group 2s, and the first of the Group 1s is the Coolmore America Justify Matron Stakes, 1,600 metre feature for the mares. We're waiting on the final field to come through. Currently, we've got Champs Elysees in there at 16-1. Dreamlopers at 12-1 for Ed Walker. Epona Plays at 8-1. Pearls Galore's at 10s. Thundering Nights, good 4-year-old for Joseph O'Brien at 5-1. Acanella's at 10s. Big Price Bella Image. Create Beliefs at 11-2. Elysium's at 16s. Empress Josephine's also at that price. Fev Rover at 25s. Flirting Bridge at 33s. Friendly at 66s. Joan of Arc, high class filly at 5-1. Lovely Esteem at 33s. Mother Earth's the favourite, 15-8. And we're going to see her campaign in Australia later this year. No Speak Alexander's at 16s. Pretty Gorgeous at 20s. Shales at 12s. And Tahil at 10-1. Stephen, early thoughts on the Matron?
Yeah, very, very tricky, Shane, isn't it, to have any firm opinions. But I really do like Thundering Nights as a filly. She's so tough. She's run 12 times. She seems to run every couple of weeks. She's a really good advert for Joseph O'Brien. I quite like the fact that they're hoping to drop her back to a mile here for the first time in a while. She's got form at a mile 4. She ran really well in France over a mile 2 last time. So a positive attacking ride on Thundering Nights on fast ground that she really likes. I'm sure she'll give her running. She does every single time she appears on the track.
Good push for Thundering Nights. She's wonderfully consistent. Ed, are you seeing it similarly?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, obviously the 1,000 guineas winner Mother Earth is soaking up a lot of the market here. I actually think Johnny Murtaugh's got quite a strong hand here. He's got the up-and-comer Create Belief, who was, of course, a distance winner last time out. I think there's won 4 of the last 5 times she's been on the racetrack. And then not to forget the old campaigner, Champs-Élysées, who won this race 12 months ago and returned to form with a runner-up last time out. Obviously, that's a good form at this track and has the been there, done it factor. Interesting one. The older horses against the classical generation, kind of price dependent. I wouldn't be too shocked if Champs-Élysées rolled back the years. This is her race, if you like, and she's been there and done it. But again, a bit too far out to have cast iron assertions.
All right, the other Group 1 on the card is the Irish Champion Stakes. I love this race. It always presents something special each and every year. We've still got 13 in the running to take their place, but I suspect it'll be a very small field. But with nominations still not finalised, we've got Armory at a big price, 25-1. Baron Semity's at 66s, as is Innisfree. Patrick Sarsfield, a horse I love, but he's been too costly for me to ever back him again, 40-1. Love the Brilliant Mare, she's at 10-1. Tanawa, who's an outstanding mare for Dermot World, currently at 2-1. Thundering Knights is still in this race, but unlikely to go there. Will more than likely go to the Matron at 16s. Bolshoi Ballet's at 33s. McSweeney's at 20s. Poetic Flair, 7-2 after missing the Prix de Moulin last week. The Brilliant St Mark's Basilica's the favourite at 6-4. Joan of Arc's in the field at this stage, still at 16s. Snowfall's also there, currently at 10-1, but unlikely to run. What a fascinating contest. I think we'll possibly end up with maybe 5 or 6 runners to face the starter. Stephen, are you with St Mark's Basilica, or are you going perhaps with one of the mares?
I like Poetic Flair, Shane. She's run 10 times now, never been beyond a mile. Colt. He's run 10 times, never been 5 wins, run a blinder every single time, kept busy all summer. I think a mile 2 won't be a problem. I do think Poetic Flair, a bit like we were talking about Stradivarius, I think he's got a bit wiser. I don't think he wants to be in front for long. I think he idled his race away when he got picked off at Goodwood, personally, and I was on the winner, so it's not pocket talk. I think they went too soon. He went over to that rail and rather died in front. I mean, there's nothing wrong with his attitude. At Deauville last time, he gave Palace Bit a real fright. I mean, another few yards after the line, I think he'd have been back in front. He was really up for a scrap that day. So 2 furlongs further, I think will suit him. I think they'll ride him with a lot more patience. But I appreciate St Mark's Basilica is going to take an awful lot of beats. He's tough, battle-hardened, and perhaps he's fresher. But it's one of those races that I think they're going to be like 6-4 and 7-2. I think I'd go towards the 7-2 chance purely on value grounds.
You make a good case for him. Poetic Flair, the brilliant 3-year-old. What about you, Ed? What's your assessment for the Irish Champion?
This is a cracker. Really excited about this, Shane. Really interested. Poetic Flair, it's intriguing. They've decided to go to 10 furlong route here. I thought, given the busy campaign he'd had, they'd almost be tempted just to wrap him a bit of cotton wool and send him straight to the QE2, back at his beloved Ascot, to have a crack against Palace Pier and Baeed. Interesting to go up to 10 furlongs here. St Mark's Basilica, clearly the horse, the explosive turn of foot. Just be a little bit worried with St Mark's Basilica. You want to see a bit of rain around. All that horse's top class form has come with substantial give underground. There are some showers around over the course of the weekend, but the ground is pretty quick in Ireland at the moment. So out of 3, I'm actually going to go with Tarnower here, who I think tactics will be really intriguing. I think St Mark's Basilica could be ridden for turn of foot. I think Poetic Flair, with a little bit of a question mark about the trip, will be ridden and conservatively ridden with patience and will come late. And I think Tarnower, who has form over soft ground and a mile and a half, as well as over 10 furlongs on a quicker surface, I think she will try and utilise her stamina and try and perhaps draw the sting out the other 2 late on. It's a wonderful contest. She arrives here on, she's rattled up 5 on the bounce, including at the top level, has the course of distance form in the book. I think it's a brilliant race. Again, ground conditions, if it became quite soft, that would alarm bells for Poetic Flair and bring St Mark's Basilica even shorter in the market. Quicker ground would see St Mark's Basilica probably really shorten up even more, because, as I said, would see him drift even more, as I said, because I think he's very happy with give underfoot. It's a trappy, intriguing contest. I think you're with St Mark's Basilica, Shane. I think Shane's with, Stephen is with Poetic Flair, and I'm with the Dermot Well filly. That pretty much sums it up at the moment. It's a race I'm really, really looking forward to.
Yeah, I think you both make great cases. The only reason I'm sticking with St Mark's Basilica is because when he won the Eclipse, he was a small field. He showed showed brilliant tactical versatility that day. And I think if we get a small field, there'll be a few options for him, whether he goes to the front and tries to control or whether he stalks the speed. But anyway, as the guys say, I think it's going to be a brilliant race. That's the Irish Champion Stakes on Saturday. So the Curragh on Saturday, we then shift to Leopardstown on Sunday. Leopardstown on Saturday, the Curragh on Sunday. 4 Group 1s and a Group 2. And the first of the Group 1s is a relatively new addition at Group 1 level, and that is the Derrinstown Stud Flying 5 Stakes over 5 furlongs. Again, just reminding that we don't have a final field yet, but we'll go through who the horses are still in the nominations. Gustavus Weston at 12-1 for the Murphy Yard. Strong Johnson's currently at 40-1. A Case of You at 16s. Dragon Symbol, very consistent, but without winning at 3-1 for Archie Watson. Rohan's at 12s. Significantly's at 25-1. The Highway Rat, great name for a horse, at 100-1. Back to Brussels at 100s. Glass Slippers, outstanding sprinting mare at 2-1. Keep Busy's at 33s. Lady in France at 66s. Romantic Proposal at 20s. Frenetics at 20s. Measure of Magic at 25s. Minista at 8-1. And the favourite, Winter Power, winner of the Nunthorpe, 15-8 for Tim Easterby. Stephen, what's your assessment for the Flying Five?
Well, I really like Dragon Symbol here of Archie Watson. I think he's been running absolute blinders in the best sprints, and there have been excuses for his last couple of defeats. At York, it was a race Winter Power absolutely blitzed them, and Dragon Symbol got run off his feet before finishing really strongly. At Goodwood, he was on the wrong side of the track as things panned out against Suesa. He's got top-class sprinting form. He's about the same horse as Starman, minus a length. I think he'll take a lot of beating here. The other two in the market at the moment, we don't know about whether Winter Power's definitely going to run. I think she is a York specialist. She's a real speedball. You might not see her to best effect at this very different track. And Glass Slippers has only had one run since last November. Did run well in the same race as Dragon Symbol, but I'd be worrying about that one bouncing second run back. Obviously, he's had issues to have missed most of the summer, only reappearing now. So Dragon Symbol for me, I think quite a confident bet, depending on what turns up.
I like what you say there about Dragon Symbol. Ed, what's your view on the Flying Five?
Well, Stephen's obviously a more forgiving type myself, because Dragon Symbol, to me, just starting to annoy me, because for whatever reason, just seems to find a way to get beaten, and often I'm talking through my pocket there. So, yeah, I mean, Dragon Symbol runs to a very high level of form, but has lost his last 5 now. And I just wonder with Glass Slippers, I think Stephen does make a good point. The horse has only been seen once since winning at the Breeders' Cup, and obviously that was at Goodwood when running really well behind Suesa to finish third. You'd hope the cliche, the dreaded bounce factor isn't there, but look, this horse won it convincing style 12 months ago. I think you'd like to think the season's been campaigned about getting Glass Slippers, getting her right for this, and would be a tentative vote in what looks a kind of 3-horse race on paper.
Let's move on to the second of the Group 1s. This is for the 2-year-old fillies, and it is the Moyglare Stud Stakes over 7 furlongs, and I think this is going to be a phenomenal race. Agartha, Joseph O'Brien, currently at 3-1. Gare de Dio at 10-3, 100-30. Concert Halls at 14s. Discoveries at 8s. Homeless Songs, the daughter of Frankel, raced and bred by the sponsors of the race at 3-1. Hymn Book 2 at 80s. Lullaby at 11-2. Missing Matron is at 50s. Prettiest at 7-1. Say at 14-1. We move on to Sunset Shiraz for the Cromwell Yard at 9s. Twinkle, I should say, at 12-1 for Aidan O'Brien. Velocitat at 6-1, and Voice of Angels at 20-1. I think this could be a very good race, Stephen. There looks to be a lot of talent in this 2-year-old fillies division, and we might see something pretty special.
Yeah, hard to assess, but I really do like Agartha of Joseph O'Brien. She's a really progressive, tough, battle-hardened filly. She's done it over this course and distance. She made all the running. She's one of these horses, comes under pressure quite early on. They know that she's a thorough, relentless galloper. She's done it round here. If she's able to get on the lead again, it's going to take an awful lot of catching. I say her last win was really impressive, and fast conditions, which it looks like we should get, would make her the one to beat for me. But it's difficult to know. One of the problems with the Irish racing, Shane, as we know, the power's concentrated in so few hands. So at the deck stage, Aidan and Joseph tend to have most of the entries, so they're not going to run all of them. It could end up being a small field. But Agartha, for me, I really like her attitude.
All right, good push for Agartha. A very, very consistent 2-year-old filly. Ed, what's your view on the Moyglare stud?
I have no idea who wins it, but I do want to flag up the individual, which, again, I talked about on the previous show, Concert Hall. who won in nice style at the course of Distance Maiden and then absolutely flopped in very deep ground in a Group 2 last time out. She's just won. She's back on a faster surface here. Wouldn't be shocked if she put in an improved performance, but I'll reiterate, she has a stout middle distance pedigree. I'll be really interested when she goes over middle distances as a 3-year-old. I'm not saying she's going to be the new Snowfall, but I just think she's one to keep on side with middle distances next year. Whatever she does here, if she kind of runs an eye-catching, staying on the one pace in third, I think we'll see a lot more from her over 10 and 12 furlongs next season. So she's just definitely one I'm going to keep in mind with next season in mind, shall we say.
All right, long-range tip there from Ed if she can't deliver this weekend. I'm very much in the camp of homeless songs. I think this daughter of Frankel might be pretty special. She only had the one start. She beat Agartha on debut, and that horse has come out and franked the form on 2 separate occasions. The fact she's raced and bred by the sponsors and Dermot Weld training her, setting for this, I think she's going to be at 100% on Sunday. I'm really looking forward to seeing what she can do. Third of the Group 1 races again. This one's for the 2-year-old colts, and it's the Goffs Vincent O'Brien National Stakes, again over 7 furlongs. I can't wait for this race too. It looks pretty good. Anatoli's at 66 to 1, a big price. Dermot Wells Duke de Sessa at 8 to 1. Ebro River 13 to 2 for Hugo Palmer. Great Max for Michael Bells at 33s. Houth for Aidan O'Brien at 40 to 1. Maritime Wings at 16s for Joseph O'Brien. Charlie Appleby and Godolphin's Unbeaten Native Trails at 7 to 2. He looks very good. The brilliant Point Lonsdale, the son of Australia for Aidan O'Brien, currently 9 to 4 on. Ultramarine Joseph O'Brien at 20 to 1. And Donica O'Brien with a runner on Conquerable currently at 33 to 1. All right, Steve, we've got a short price favourite in the brilliant Point Lonsdale. His form's been outstanding all the way through the season. Are you happy to go with him, or are you looking for a marginal upset with something else in the race?
I think it'd be very hard to beat Shen. He's the best juvenile we've seen so far. He's done it at the track. His Chesham win, of course, from Reach for the Moon, that form's worked out superbly. The runner-up there's won twice since and is supposedly the next big thing. Has been really impressive in franking the form. I think Point Lonsdale will be very hard to beat. I suspect he might, unfortunately, scare off quite a few of these. This could be another small field, and Point Lonsdale likely to make all the running.
Your assessment for the Vincent O'Brien?
Yeah, I think Point Lonsdale is the best horse of the race. The only thing I got with Point Lonsdale, Shane, it's just starting to look a little bit slow. You see what I'm saying? I mean, what I'm saying is he won convincingly in the Futurity Stakes last time. I actually watched that race back again. He is nudged along 2 furlongs out to get going. He looks a proper galloper, this horse. I think he'll probably have you've got very different types of horses in here. Native Trail was very keen, very lit up. It's clearly a bit more of a push button type. We saw that when the horse kind of scrambled home in the Superlative Stakes. And then you've got Ebro River again. I think it's a pretty strong traveller, but does want soft ground according to Hugo Palmer. So I think this race could cut up. I wouldn't be shocked if Ebro River didn't make the journey and we end up with Native Trail against Point Lonsdale. I think Point Lonsdale wants to get on with things early on. He wouldn't want this to turn into a kind of a tactical, small field, messy kind of chess match, because I think he could end up getting mugged, to be honest with you. I think he's the best horse in the race. He just would want this to be uncomplicated, shall we say. So, yeah, unfortunately, going to go off a very short price, I would imagine. But I think tactics are going to be interesting. And I don't think they'll be hanging around with Point Lonsdale, because I think that horse will be over a mile sooner rather than later.
Yep. You make a good case, and I do hope we do get to see Point Lonsdale v Native Trail. It'll be a pretty mouth-watering contest for 2 colts that look like they're going to be major players in the Group 1 races as 3-year-olds next year. All right, let's move on to the final Group 1 race on Sunday. And this, of course, is the Como Group International Irish St Leger. Fantastic race over a mile and 6 furlongs each and every year. It's one of my favourite races on the calendar. Aircraft Carriers at a massive price, 100 to 1. Amran Bifan, if I'll get that right, probably not, 20 to 1. Barbados at 25s. Baron Samedi at 5 to 1. Brokeback Mountain at 16 to 1. Eagles by Day at 25s. Emperor of the Sun at 11 to 1. Falcon 8 for Dermot Weld at 14 to 1. Master of Reality, the brilliant stayer for Joseph O'Brien and Lloyd Williams at 7s. Rip Van Lips at 14 to 1. Santiago at 8 to 1. Sunny Boy Liston at 9 to 2. Takarengo is at 50 to 1. And Twilight Payment The Melbourne Cup winner at 7-2 for Joseph O'Brien. Barrington Court at 16-1. Passions at 11-1. Search for a Song at 6-1. Agrimonies at 33s. Carlisle Bays at 20s. King of the Castle at 25. Seattle Creek is still there at 100-1. Sir Lucan's in the field still as we're waiting on final acceptances. Currently 9-2. So we've still got 22 in the running for the Irish St Ledger. Stephen, early thoughts?
Well, I do like Sonny Boy Liston, Shane, but I'm a bit mortified at the price. I thought I was being unusually clever, actually, and found a sort of double figure one. He was really impressive in landing quite a gamble in the Ebor at York. He's won twice at the Curragh already. He's relatively unexposed over this kind of trip. He'll love the quickish ground as long as they miss the rain. I think he's bound to run really well. He's the sort of now horse. Often you get these handicappers, in inverted commas, when they step up to group company, they get overlooked. And I was hoping that would be the case, but looking at 9-2, that I must admit that's taken the wind out of my sails a bit. I was hoping he might be sort of nearer 10-1, but we'll see when the final decks come through. I would imagine he's bound to run well.
Yeah, another good case that you make about him. It's interesting, though, we've still got 22 runners down as we await what the final decks will be. So hopefully, Ed, we might get a decent-sized field for the St Ledger this year. What's your early thought?
Yeah, I think a few will probably be having a crack at this. And if you ever come to the to the UK, Shane, you go down to the Kent coast, there's the White Cliffs of Dover. Well, if you're going to talk about cliff horses, I'll be sat there pitched with a picnic, Prosecco, all sorts of picnic habits for about the last 2 years of a horse called Santiago, who, of course, they've tried to make into a proper stare this year and it's just not turned out into one. It's possible the horse has just passed his best. However, he's coming back in trip, and the only time he ran it, of course, he did win the Irish Derby, obviously at Group 1 level. Interesting they're coming down the distance with him. I actually, again, watched the Ascot Gold Cup back the other day. So he had no chance of winning it, but he did travel very well till about the 2 mile marker before emptying. So back to mile 6, back at a track where he had the kind of the finest hour of his career, shall we say. Then hopefully, we'll be singing on those cliffs after this contest. But very tricky, trappy contest. But Santiago is 12-1. If I knew it was lining up and running and the ground was going to be decent, I would be getting involved.
Oh, I've got to say, really looking forward to this weekend. 2 brilliant days of racing coming in Ireland with Leopardstown and the Curragh, and also the end of the St Ledger meeting from Doncaster, plus Group 1 racing from Paris Longchamp. It's a pretty special weekend coming up. All right, it's now time for all the tips of the week. I've got to say, we all struggled a little bit last week, Stephen, as we take a moment to have a look at and reflect on your performance. A rare strikeout for you. Of course, you were heavily committed to Starman, who probably should have won. Global Storm and Cliffs of Capri also letting the side down. But what a phenomenal season you've had, 60.5 units ahead of the game at the moment. Let's have a look at who you like this weekend, Stephen.
Yeah, 2 bets for me, Shane, at the moment. Doncaster for both of them. The 220, the Champagne Stakes. I really like Bayside Boy here, around about 7-1 of Roger Varian. He's held in the highest regard at home. He was really impressive on his debut, and he was stable nap and got absolutely mugged by Massacala at Newbury in a bit of a messy, small field race where he rather used himself up to narrowly hit the front and then got out-battled on the nod by the winner. The form of his previous win against Find has been well franked. That's come out and won by 6 lengths next time out. So I still have kept the faith with Bayside Boy. He is up in class, but I think this bigger field will really help him. He has got a turn of foot. David Egan knows him. I do think he might have a quirk or two, but he's potentially very smart. And 7-1 is a very fair price. And in the 3 o'clock, which is the Park Stakes, a Group 2, I think Dania can handle the step up from handicaps into this much warmer race. A really impressive winner at Ascot last time out. You don't often see 19-odd runner handicaps won in that style, making all the running, challenged from halfway, pulling out more and more and more to see them off. I really like that run, and I think that Dania will get another front-running ride from Dane O'Neill and make all the running and handle this jump up in class. I think he's about 7-2, which again is a more than fair price.
All right, 2 nice value runners there. Bayside Boy at around 7s. Dania at 7-2. Good luck to you, Stephen. Of course, you can get Stephen tips on bettingexpert.com each and every day with his best bet and value bet for racing in the UK. All right, Ed, let's have a look at your performance last week. And Guinness Affair got the job done winning. We got 6-5 on there. And Hookham, of course, let everyone down with his defeat in the September Stakes. Somewhat frustrating, but you're still well ahead, 19 units up. Who do you like this weekend?
Well, just very quickly, Shane, I mean, what did you make of Hookham? I mean, I got egg on my face because the race cut up to nothing. He went off about 1-99 and got beaten, but just seemed to be no obvious excuse. I mean, what was your view?
I agree with you entirely. I thought he was weak. He had every conceivable hope to win that race, and my overall assessment is I think we maybe rated him a little bit higher than what his real ability is. The race was there to be won. He should have put it to bed, and he was beaten by a horse who was coming back from a somewhat lengthy break. So, big question mark over him. I think he's just a listed to Group 3 level horse. He'll probably win again, but do we ever want to take those sort of odds about him again? I don't think so.
No, that's fair assessment. I was just wondering if either of you had spotted something I hadn't, but yeah, seemed to have every opportunity of winning and didn't get the job done. So yeah, anyway, we're kind of different tack this week. Looking at some bigger prices really. There's a couple of floating around. Chipotle in the Flying Childers is interesting. This horse has got some very good back form on fast ground. Things just haven't gone quite right recently, including Group 1 level in recent times at York, and struggled on soft ground as well. Should get fast ground, and on ratings does not have a lot to find at all in this field. So I was quite surprised to see Chipotle as big in the market as that one is, at around the 16-1 mark. Now I'm taking Stephen on just from a value perspective in the Park Stakes with Oh This Is Us, who around 20-1 shocked me. What I think there's a bit of, how shall I say, unexposed snobbery going on here, and the fact that Oh This Is Us, there's no secrets. We know what Oh This Is Us is. It's a lovable campaigning, runs here, there, everywhere, heart on the sleeve type warrior, and is susceptible to younger legs. However, there's a very smart form at Doncaster. As a course of distance winner, was only beaten a neck in this a couple of seasons ago, and often just has a habit of cropping up at a big price. Lots of goes on any ground, goes on soft, goes on quick, and again, on official figures, does not have much to find at all. I suppose you've got to take into account others could progress and go past Oh This Is Us. But look, I wouldn't be at all shocked if this horse ran a huge race at 20-1. And it sounds like Tom Marcon could end up being in the saddle as well. So look, 20-1, I thought that one could go well. And then, the Jamie Snowden team have been serving us well with the jumps at the moment. The Pisgah Pike is 2 from 2 at Worcester. Goes in the handicap company here off 139. And again, we don't quite know what the makeup of this race will be, but looks a smart little summer jumper, I think, and could end up running a good race in one of the Saturday races in the autumn as well. So Pisgah Pike in the 2 mile handicap chase at Worcester on Monday as well, looking for a big run. So yeah, a couple of big prices and a shorter one. And yeah, no Hookhams on my card this week, Shane. That was, to use your word, Shane, that was horrible.
It certainly was, Ed, because now it's time to reflect on my performance last week. And I'll tell you what, if I can't strike back this week, I'm banning myself next week. I need to freshen up because I went wide with Nando Parado. He was a miserable selection in hindsight. I know, Ed, you were supporting me when I tipped him up at 66-1 last week, but he ran last, so he's done.
He's finished.
Hierarchy ran third in the Serene. He actually ran quite a good race, but couldn't get the job done. And I don't want to reflect on Hookham anymore in the September Stakes because he was weak. I'm now finding myself 33 units down, so I'm giving myself a chance this week to blast back. If not, I'm on the sidelines for the next couple of weeks. Let's have a look at my tips, and I'm quite keen on 2. I'm going St Mark's Basilica. I think 6-4 is the right price for him. As I mentioned earlier, tactically, he gets a lot of ticks. I think he's got the best turn of foot of any horse in the race. And getting to 2,000 metres around a track that really should suit him based on what we know of him as a racehorse, I think at 6-4, he just might be a good bet in the Irish Champion Stakes. I'm very, very keen on Homeless Songs in the Moyglare Stud Stakes. Only had the 1 start. Brilliant winner. She was a big price on that day too when winning by 2 lengths at 8-1. 3-1 for Dermot Weld's filly, who I know he's got big raps on. I think she might take out the Group 1. So I'm going St Mark's Basilica, Homeless Songs. If they don't get home this week, I'm on the sidelines for next week. All right, guys, quick look ahead to your highlights. Stephen, what are you looking forward to most this weekend?
I think Stradivarius winning on Friday, Hurricane Lane winning on Saturday, Shane, and Bayside Boy and Dania at Doncaster on Saturday. There'll hopefully be a nice Yankee for Jump To It followers.
Good stuff. Good luck to you. Ed, what are you looking forward to most this weekend besides putting your feet up on Sunday, not having to run?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no running around this weekend after two young children. But yeah, I think hoping for a couple of big runs from This Is Us and Chipotle at big prices, and hoping the rain stay away for them. But yeah, undoubtedly, my anti-post ticket could go up into smoke at Hurricane Lane. So just hoping that that horse can get the job done. But undoubtedly, the race of the weekend, the Irish champion, Poetic Flair, Tarnower, and St Mark's Basilica all going at it. I mean, that really is top class affair, isn't it? And hopefully we'll see Poetic Flair in either the Champion Stakes or the QE2 after, St Mark's Basilica possibly in the Champion Stakes after, and the Tarnower, of course, is going on to the Arc after this. So much to look forward to. But that race, that Irish Champion Stakes, really is exciting.
Good luck to you as well, Ed. I hope you've enjoyed today's edition of Jump to It with thanks to Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley. Of course, Stephen's tips on bettingexpert.com. You can find them each and every day with his best bet or his nap bet and his value bet. And of course, the show brought to you by irishracing.com. Vincent and the team do a fantastic job in providing plenty of news, information, betting cards, betting information, and plenty of winners. And make sure you do sign up and subscribe to the irishracing.com YouTube channel. It is now the home of Jump to It. Hope you've enjoyed today's edition of the show. Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next week.